Welcome to our deep dive all about mindfulness and neuroplasticity.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
It is. You guys sent in some amazing stuff about how mindfulness can actually reshape our brains.
Really interesting stuff.
I know. We are going to unpack all the key insights from Mindsight 3.mt3 and Mindsight 4.mp3, exploring stories and the
There's
science.
science behind it all.
Yeah, it's going to be like your brain training manual.
I love that. And it is so cool how those materials combine, like personal stories and scientific research.
Yeah,
It's not just, mindfulness works, but it shows you how it actually impacts the brain,
totally.
like physically.
So let's just jump right in with Mindsight 3.mp3. It starts off with this idea of mindfulness being like a gateway to change.
Yeah.
What really stood out to you in their definition of mindfulness?
Well, they emphasize just paying attention to the present moment
Yeah.
without judgment,
Right.
often focusing on, something as simple as your breath. And it's really like hitting the pause button on all the chatter in our minds
Totally.
and just noticing what is.
Yeah.
Just noticing.
That makes total sense. And it reminds me of that analogy they use, the wheel of awareness,
Oh, yeah.
where the rim is, everything our attention is pulled to senses, thoughts, feelings. But the hub is that calm observing awareness. Have you found that visual helpful?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
It's a great reminder that we actually have a choice. We can either get swept away by the thoughts and feelings, out there on the rim,
Yeah.
or we can come back to the hub,
Yeah.
to that mindful awareness.
And the more we practice that, the stronger that hub gets.
Absolutely. Like a muscle.
Totally. Which leads to actual changes in the brain, and that's where it gets really, really cool.
Yeah.
They talk about how mindfulness can actually strengthen the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive control center of our brain.
It's like the CEO of the brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For those who might not be familiar with brain anatomy, can you explain what a stronger prefrontal cortex does for us?
Well, it's like having a more skilled CEO
Okay.
running the show. So that means better emotional regulation,
Uh-huh.
wiser decision-making, greater ability to handle stress
Yeah.
without getting hijacked by it.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is giving us a mental upgrade.
I love that. It's like mindfulness is our software update.
Exactly.
And they illustrate all this with some really interesting stories. One that really stood out to me was Jonathan's.
Yeah.
He's a teenager dealing with really intense mood swings.
Right.
And at first he's totally skeptical, doesn't want to do this.
Yeah.
What struck you about his journey?
I think what's remarkable is his transformation.
Yeah.
He initially felt totally overwhelmed by his emotions.
Yeah.
But through mindfulness, he was able to start observing his thoughts and feelings
Yeah.
with more objectivity.
Right.
And he started to realize that they weren't his identity.
Yeah.
They were just passing events in his mind.
And there's that really powerful moment where he talks about visualizing his helplessness as a boat that he could choose to step off of.
Yeah.
I thought that was so powerful.
Such a powerful image, yeah. And it really illustrates that shift in perspective. He's not fused with his emotions.
Right.
He's creating distance.
Yeah.
He can observe them rather than just being consumed by them.
Right.
And that shift is actually reflected in his brain as he moves to a more resilient state.
Wow.
It's not just a feel-good story. It's backed by neuroscience.
That is so cool. It makes you wonder if mindfulness can help a teenager struggling with these intense emotions.
Yeah.
What about someone who feels almost no emotions?
Right.
And that's where Stuart's story comes in. This 92-year-old lawyer, he describes himself as feeling nothing emotionally. What were your initial thoughts when you read about him?
Well, his case raises some really interesting questions about the balance between the left side and the right side of the brain.
Yep.
The source suggests that his really emotionally distant upbringing might have led to an over-reliance on his left brain,
Okay.
the logic and analytical side,
Mm-hmm.
while his right brain, which is about emotions and relationships, remained underdeveloped.
And it's so interesting how he initially resists those nonverbal communication games in therapy.
Right.
It's like he's almost afraid to tap into that emotional side of himself.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, it could be a form of self-protection,
Ah.
Maybe he learned early on that expressing emotion was unsafe,
Yeah.
unwelcome. So shutting down emotionally became his way to cope.
Right.
But what's amazing is that over time,
Yeah.
he starts to let go of that resistance.
Yeah. And that's where we see the power of neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Even at 92, his brain is capable of change.
It's incredible.
The source explains how those exercises, along with things like body scans, helped, stimulate his right brain and create new neural connections. And then there's that moment where he experiences a deep connection with his therapist and says he understands what it means to feel for the first time.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new world opened up for him.
Amazing, yeah.
It really is. Like, it's proof that it's never too late to rewire our brains and tap into that emotional potential.
Never too late.
And the source keeps going with this idea, driving it home with Anne's story. She's a successful physician who, consciously decided as a child to shut down her feelings to cope. I found it heartbreaking, but also really relatable. Don't we all have certain emotions that we try to avoid feeling?
Absolutely. And what's interesting about Anne's story is that it points to a potential disconnect between, the thinking brain, the cortex, and those subcortical areas that are responsible for, emotions and bodily sensations. It's like she built a wall between her mind and her body.
And then that wall starts to crumble when she's doing a body scan exercise.
Wow.
And has this full-blown panic attack.
Oh.
It's like all those repressed emotions she'd been holding down just burst through.
Yeah.
Have you seen that kind of release in your work?
Oh, it's not uncommon. The body remembers what the mind, tries to forget.
Yeah.
And sometimes the only way to heal is to allow those emotions to, come to the surface.
To be processed, yeah.
And that's where therapy is so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about the mindfulness exercises.
Right.
It's about having that safe space to, process these difficult emotions.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the source's emphasis on the therapist's presence as, a key factor in healing?
Oh, I think it's essential. A therapist's presence, their attunement, their ability to create safety is so powerful. It's like they're holding a space for the patient to explore their inner world.
Yeah.
Without fear.
Without fear of judgment.
For judgment or being overwhelmed, yeah.
The source brings in this concept of the window of tolerance from Mindsight 4.mp3.
Right.
Can you explain what that is? Sure. Window of tolerance refers to the range of emotions and sensations that we can handle.
Okay.
Comfortably without getting overwhelmed or shutting down. It's like our emotional capacity.
Okay.
And a good therapist can help expand that window.
Yeah.
So the patient can process difficult emotions that might have felt too intense before.
So in Anne's case, the therapist is there to help her face her panic and move through it rather than shutting down or running away.
Exactly. It's like the therapist is helping her build the emotional muscle that she needs to navigate those choppy waters.
And that all ties back into neuroplasticity.
Right.
With the right support and practice, we can rewire our brains.
Absolutely.
To be more resilient and emotionally intelligent. And these stories really show that it's not just theoretical.
Yeah.
It's happening in real people's lives.
It is. It is.
Now, Mindsight 4.mp3 takes us deeper into memory. And it shares this chilling story of Bruce, a veteran with PTSD who has these vivid flashbacks. What struck you about his experience?
Well, I think Bruce's story gives us a glimpse into the different ways that our brains process memories.
Okay.
So the source distinguishes between implicit memory, which is unconscious and fragmented, and explicit memory, which is conscious and has a narrative.
Right.
Trauma, like Bruce experienced, can impair the hippocampus, which is a key brain area for memory. And this can lead to memories being stored in a raw, unprocessed form as implicit memories.
And because those memories haven't been integrated into a coherent narrative, they intrude on the present as flashbacks, like his past is haunting him. It makes me wonder if trauma can leave these implicit scars. Can, seemingly less dramatic experiences also shape our unconscious patterns?
That's a great question. And the source actually explores this very idea through the stories of Allison and Elaine.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Allison's a survivor of childhood abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Elaine's fear comes from a childhood fall. And what's so interesting is that they both develop these, limiting beliefs and anxieties based on these early experiences, even though, Elaine's trauma was less severe.
Right.
And it highlights how even small events can impact our unconscious mind.
This is where the source talks about the dual focus approach used in therapy. Can you walk us through how that works?
Yeah. It encourages patients to revisit their memories while staying grounded in the present moment.
Okay.
It's like holding both the past and the present in awareness simultaneously.
At the same time.
Yeah. This can help integrate traumatic memories into a coherent narrative.
So it's not about erasing the past, but creating a new relationship with those memories.
Exactly. And both Allison and Elaine were able to do that.
Wow.
They reclaimed a sense of agency and freedom from their past.
That's amazing. Their stories make me think about all the ways our past is shaping our present without us even realizing it.
Absolutely.
Are there any techniques we can use to, like, bring those unconscious patterns to light?
That is a great question. And it's one we're going to explore further as we continue this deep dive.
Awesome. Because I'm ready to uncover some of those hidden influences in my own life.
Me too.
Before we move on, I want to touch on one more story from Mindsight4.mp3. It's Rebecca's. She had a chaotic childhood, but was able to overcome these challenges to become like a resilient adult.
Right.
What did you get from her story?
Well, I think Rebecca's journey really shows the power of secure attachment.
Okay.
Even though her early life was unstable, she had at least one caregiver who provided her with a sense of safety.
Right.
And emotional support.
Right.
And this allowed her to develop a sense of resilience.
And the source goes on to explain how even people who didn't have secure attachments early on can develop what they call earned security.
Yeah.
Through positive relationships and therapy.
Yeah.
What does that look like in practice? How do we earn security?
That's a great question. And it's one that we will definitely delve into in part 2 of our discussion. We'll explore the different attachment styles.
Okay.
How they develop.
Yeah.
And how we can move toward more secure ways of relating to ourselves and others.
Awesome. I am so looking forward to that. I feel like we've already uncovered so much, and we're just getting started.
I know. This is where it gets even more fascinating.
I can't wait. To our listeners, we'll see you in part 2, where we'll be unpacking attachment styles and their impact on our lives.
See you there.
Welcome back. Picking up our deep dive where we left off, we are exploring attachment styles.
Oh, yeah?
And how they impact our lives. It's like we're uncovering like the secret code behind our relationships.
And I think as we go deeper, you'll start to see how these patterns from our past can actually play out in our present.
Totally.
Often without us even realizing it.
So let's break down these attachment styles, starting with secure attachment. We talked about Rebecca, who had a tough childhood,
Right.
but she was able to become a resilient adult.
Right.
What makes secure attachment so valuable? Like, why is that the goal?
It's like having a solid emotional base camp.
Okay.
Securely attached individuals tend to have a more balanced view of themselves and their relationships. They acknowledge both the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And they're comfortable with vulnerability.
That makes sense. So it's like they have a strong inner compass that helps them navigate through life.
Yeah.
And relationships. And they don't shy away from like difficult emotions.
Right.
They like approach them.
They lean in.
Yeah.
And that ability to process emotions effectively rather than like shutting down or getting overwhelmed is key.
If secure attachment is like the ideal, how do these other styles develop?
Yep.
What like throws things off balance? The source mentions the dismissing attachment style. We saw that with Stuart.
Right.
Who really struggled to connect with his emotions. How does that style develop?
It often emerges when caregivers are emotionally unavailable.
Okay.
Or consistently downplay, the importance of emotions.
Yeah.
So these kids learn to suppress their needs.
Right.
And become really self-reliant to cope.
So they basically shut down their emotions.
They build a wall around their heart to protect themselves from getting hurt.
That's heartbreaking. If you learn that expressing your needs only leads to disappointment,
Yeah.
you adapt.
You adapt, yeah.
But how does this play out in adult relationships for somebody like that?
Well, people with the dismissing style often minimize the importance of relationships in their stories. They might idealize their childhoods,
right.
have trouble remembering, specific emotional events. It's like they've edited out the emotional parts.
So they might crave that connection.
Deep down.
But their fear of vulnerability prevents them from engaging.
Exactly, yeah.
Which brings us to the preoccupied attachment style, which the source pointed to in Greg's story.
Yeah.
What are some of the signs of this style?
People with a preoccupied style tend to be really entangled in their past relationships.
Okay.
And their narratives are long, they're detailed, but they lack, a sense of resolution.
Okay.
They might ruminate on past hurts,
right.
replay conversations in their minds, struggle to move on.
They get caught up in the details of past conflicts, but they can't see the big picture.
Right, exactly. And this can create a lot of anxiety and uncertainty in their present relationships.
Yeah.
They might constantly seek reassurance. They might fear abandonment.
Right.
Or become overly dependent on their partners.
Like they're looking for something external to soothe their internal insecurities.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, the source also mentions the unresolved attachment style.
Right.
sometimes referred to as disorganized. What makes that different?
Unresolved attachment often comes from experiences of trauma or loss that haven't been processed or integrated. Their narratives can be incoherent, fragmented. They might jump between like contradictory feelings. They have trouble staying grounded in the present moment.
It's like their trauma is still alive in their present experience, shaping how they act and how they see things.
Exactly. And this unresolved trauma can show up in a lot of ways. Flashbacks. Nightmares. Difficulty regulating emotions. Or even dissociation. They might have trouble trusting others. Fear intimacy. Or have difficulty maintaining stable relationships.
This brings up a really important question. How do these different attachment styles develop? What role do early childhood experiences play?
Well, attachment theory says that our primary caregivers play a huge role in shaping our early attachment patterns. If a child's needs are met consistently by their caregivers, they're more likely to develop a secure attachment.
So it's about having that consistent presence. Who responds to your needs and makes you feel safe and loved.
It creates that sense of trust in the world and in relationships.
But what happens when those needs aren't met?
Well, a lot of things can disrupt that development of secure attachment. Neglect, abuse, inconsistent caregiving, or even a caregiver's own unresolved trauma. Can all interfere with a child's ability to form a secure bond.
Those early experiences create like a blueprint for how we approach relationships and navigate the world. So if your early environment was like unpredictable or unsafe, you might develop these strategies to protect yourself.
Exactly. Like shutting down emotionally or becoming clingy.
And those coping mechanisms might have helped you as a kid, but they become obstacles to healthy relationships as an adult. So even if our early experiences were tough, we can still heal.
Absolutely.
And create more fulfilling relationships. But how do we actually do that? Like, how do we rewrite those old blueprints?
Well, that's where the power of mindfulness comes in.
And
therapeutic support. Remember neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Our brains are constantly changing, adapting based on our experiences.
So we can actually rewire our brains to develop more secure ways of attaching.
We can.
Tell me more about that.
Well, mindfulness can be incredibly helpful. It cultivates present moment awareness. Which helps us interrupt those automatic reactions and habitual patterns. That stem from those old blueprints.
It's like mindfulness gives us the space to pause. Observe our thoughts and feelings and choose how we want to respond.
Make a conscious choice. Rather than just
reacting. Right. By practicing mindfulness, we are strengthening those neural pathways associated with emotional regulation. Self-awareness.
And compassion.
We're literally changing our brains to become more secure and resilient.
Exactly.
So mindfulness helps us become aware of those old patterns. But how do we start shifting them?
Well, therapy provides that safe and supportive environment. To exploit those patterns and their origins. A good therapist can help you understand your style. Recognize how it's impacting your relationships and develop strategies to create more secure connections.
It's like therapy gives us a roadmap for navigating the complexities of relationships and healing.
And it's not just about talking, It's about creating new experiences that can actually rewire our brains.
Through the therapeutic relationship, we can experience new ways of relating. New ways of receiving and giving love. And new ways of communicating our needs. It's like we're creating new pathways.
New neural pathways.
That support healthier relationships. And those new pathways over time become stronger than the old ones. So it's like we're literally rewiring our brains for secure attachment.
A process of unlearning and learning. And it's never too late.
Never too late. So we're not destined to repeat the same patterns forever.
No.
We have the power to change and grow and create those relationships that we really want.
We do.
What are some key takeaways you want to leave our listeners with today?
Well, I think the most important one is that awareness is the first step. Recognizing our patterns, understanding where they come from. And how they're affecting our relationships.
Totally.
That's crucial. And we're not alone in this journey.
There's support available.
There is.
Through mindfulness, through therapy, through connecting with others who understand. awareness,
support,
and the courage to rewrite our stories.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, I want to go back to something we mentioned earlier, the interplay between the left and right hemispheres of the brain.
Oh, yeah?
The source hinted at how imbalances between those can lead to like a lot of challenges.
Right.
Can you expand on that a little?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like having these two brilliant advisors.
Okay.
You know,
in our heads.
each with their own perspective,
Right.
expertise.
Yeah.
And when they work together, we thrive.
We thrive.
But when they're out of sync, it can create all sorts of internal conflict.
Okay.
Makes it harder to navigate life.
Yeah. So that's a great analogy. I'm really curious to learn more about those two advisors.
Yeah.
And how we can help them work together.
Well, in the next part of our deep dive, we'll do just that.
Oh, awesome.
We'll delve into the left brain, right brain dynamics, explore each hemisphere, talk about how imbalances can show up.
Okay.
And explore strategies for creating more balance.
Balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like learning to conduct a symphony.
In your own mind.
In your own mind.
That sounds incredible. I can't wait to learn how to be a better conductor. To our listeners, we'll see you in part 3 where we'll explore that world of left brain, right brain dynamics.
Welcome back to our deep dive exploring the left and right hemispheres of the brain.
It's like we've got these two powerful processors in our head.
I know, right? Each with their own specialties.
Exactly. And I think as we explore these differences, you'll start to understand your own tendencies better.
I'm ready. Tell me everything. So what does each hemisphere bring to the table?
Well, broadly speaking, the left hemisphere is all about logic, language analysis, and linear thinking.
It's great at taking complex information and breaking it down into smaller chunks.
So it's like the analytical side.
Yes. Always looking for order and structure.
I can definitely relate to that. What about the right hemisphere?
Well, the right side is more about creativity, intuition, holistic thinking, and emotional intelligence.
Okay.
It sees the big picture, connects the dots, perceives patterns. It's less about dissecting and more about synthesizing.
Ah, so the artistic intuitive side.
Exactly.
So how do these two sides work together? Do they collaborate or fight for control?
Ideally, they work in harmony, complementing each other. The corpus callosum, that thick band of nerve fibers connecting the two hemispheres, acts as a bridge, allowing for constant communication.
Like a high-speed internet connection.
Exactly. And that integration is really important. When both sides are in sync, we experience balance and well-being.
We can think logically and creatively, empathize, and make sound decisions.
Precisely.
What happens if there's an imbalance? Can that cause problems?
Yes, imbalances can manifest in different ways.
Yeah.
Remember Stewart, the lawyer who had trouble connecting with his emotions?
Yes. His left brain dominance made him brilliant, but emotionally detached.
Exactly. And someone with too much right brain dominance might struggle with organization or logical reasoning.
So it's about finding the sweet spot, the balance between logic and intuition.
Like an orchestra, you need all the instruments to create beautiful music.
I'm ready for my conducting lessons. How can we promote integration between the two sides?
Well, mindfulness, which we've talked about, can be very helpful. It engages both sides of the brain and cultivates balanced awareness.
Okay, it's like mindfulness is the conductor's baton. What else can we try?
Engaging in activities that challenge both hemispheres. For someone who's left brain, trying things like painting or dancing can help activate the right side.
And for someone who's right-brained, things like learning a new language or solving puzzles can strengthen the left side.
It's about stepping outside our comfort zones and giving our brains a good workout.
This deep dive has been amazing. We've learned so much about mindfulness, memory attachment, and now left brain, right brain dynamics.
It's so fascinating, isn't it?
It is, and it's empowering to know that we're not stuck. We have the power to change, adapt, and create the life we want.
Absolutely. And as you continue learning, experiment with different practices and activities, find what helps you create balance and integration in your own life.
That's great advice. So to our listeners, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing. Until next time.